Trey Lance's most underrated trait is just his ability and consistency to check the ball down. And it sounds kind of weird. Probably one of the easiest passes in the game. It's on pure farm if you're just checking the ball down to your running back. But when you kind of look at what kind of quarterbacks consistently check the ball down well, it's top end guys. There's a reason why Jameis Winston throws so many interceptions because he doesn't check the ball down. I believe there was a quarterback coach on record that said, like, yeah, if Jameis knew how to check the ball down, he'd be an all pro or something like that. And it just, I mean, I know it's kind of a, very, very bold statement to say something like that, but I think that it needs to be noticed how important it is to consistently check the ball down. Everyone realizes Trey Lance has the elite tools. People talk about how he hasn't thrown any interceptions. Well, a lot of that is because he has that consistency to go through his progressions. And if nothing's there, he just goes running back, checks it down really quick. That's something that Jimmy has struggled with in the past. And like I said, many other quarterbacks have struggled with. I think it's a really underrated attribute to a lot of these quarterbacks' game because instead of getting sacked or losing yards or doing whatever, you're just consistently picking up a couple yards. And with some of the guys that the Niners have that are going to be around the line of scrimmage, I think it's a huge deal. So, Aiden, what's just your thought on me bringing up this checking down trait as something that's really underrated?
I think that's a great point. It's something like that you mentioned that the great quarterbacks do, taking what the defense gives you and really helps you move the chains. I have a different underrated trait, but it definitely goes along with what you said. His ability to not take sacks. So in 15 games in his one full season as a starter, he took 12 sacks. Think about that for a second. For a guy who runs the ball a ton, who for a large portion of his college career was the best athlete on the field, to be able to run around and not take sacks and be able to check the ball down. I think that's something where both of those factors come together almost, and you can see how because he's able to check down, he doesn't take as many sacks, and because he doesn't take sacks, he's able to check down. There are things that fit really well together. But I think that's something that's super important, given that we have the yak bros, and people who can make plays after the catch if the catch is either behind the line of scrimmage, as we saw last year. Hopefully, we see a little bit less of that, but something that I think brings a new dimension to this offense, and something that's super exciting.
Yeah, 100%. And you look back at against the Debo Samuel against the Rams game. I want to say he caught the ball like an average of like 2 yards down the field. It was something like super low. Still was able to put up like I think 130 yards. So catching the ball on the scrimmage, I think we're going to still see that. I think whenever Lance does start, I think it's going to be a lot more of stuff right around the line of scrimmage and deep shots down the field, opposed to this intermediate, shorter passing game that you've seen with Jimmy. I think it's going to be a lot more of like short play, big play to kind of take the top off the defense. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think bringing up the sacks is a great point to kind of talk about because that 100% goes hand in hand. Where if you're checking the ball down, you're not going to take those sacks. That's what's made Tom Brady's career. It's one of the biggest reasons Tom Brady's had so much success. That's why there's always a James White, a Rex Burkhead. A number of guys. I think this year Tom Brady has Giovanni Bernard. They bring him in there just because last year they kind of used Leonard Fournette as their passing back, which was a little bit weird, I think, for Tom. But now, another scat back there. So having all these scat backs, I think that's helped Tom so much just checking the ball down. And the 49ers don't exactly have guys to that level, but I think we're going to see Sermon come out of the backfield, catch passes. Elijah Mitchell, same thing goes for him. Raheem Mostert had talked about before last year that he was kind of hoping to take on a larger role in that aspect. So maybe him as well. So but I just felt like it was something that really needed to bring up because yes, he naturally goes through his progressions and goes like through everything quick, but no one brings up like, okay, he will consistently check the ball down if nothing's there, and he gets it out so quick. He's not a lot getting sacked as much. He's not having these negative plays, and he's always going to pick up, a couple yards here and there. And even if he doesn't, I mean, that's kind of on his guys that he's checking the ball down to not make a guy miss. But with what the 49ers want to do, I think it's fantastic. I think maybe that means you're going to see Debo around the line of scrimmage a little bit more. Though I think last year he was definitely hampered by that hamstring injury where he doesn't have that explosiveness. He doesn't have that second gear. but that's why they hadn't had him around the line of scrimmage more. So I just think it's a really big thing to bring up. And one of the things that Lance might struggle with a little bit early on is just adjusting to the speed of the NFL. That might be why he doesn't start right away. But just his natural ability to look through everything, go through his progressions, I think that's going to make a huge difference in his timetable, because I've heard some people say that they think he's going to be a 2 to 4 year project. If you're able to just get the ball out really quick, you're not going to be a 2 to 4 year project. That's just how it is, in my opinion. But anything else you wanted to add before we kind of move on, Aiden?
It was actually 16 games and not 15. And something that I didn't know, Matt. Do you know who he played in the D1 AA national championship game? Ben DiNucci. He beat Ben DiNucci in the national championship game. You know that this guy's gonna be ready to play. 2 to 4 year project. No way. This guy should start week 1 if he's able to beat Ben DiNucci. Come on.
well, not to mention, Ben DiNucci's already started a primetime NFL
That's
game.
what I'm
So
saying. If Ben's ready, I think Trey, and I think that people 4 year project. Can you imagine? Can you imagine we're 3 years down the road and Kyle's like Trey's just not quite ready yet.
well,
People,
look
people,
at Jordan Love. People are freaking
well,
out over Jordan Love right now.
we're in year 2, and that's Rodgers coming off an MVP season. Jimmy, probably isn't going to give us prime Aaron Rodgers seasons. So if Jimmy continues on his 25 touchdowns, 10 picks, solid starter, but Trey cannot get on the field in, we'll say, 3 years, I think we're going to have some major question marks, and that could be looked at as a horrible pick. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, same here. No, that's just that would be really something if you take a guy 3 overall and he sits for 2 to 4 years. And I've said before, I think it's about a year. I think he could easily come into this season. I don't think he's going to start right away, but I would probably expect Jimmy to be expected to start all year. And I know a lot of people aren't with me on that. That's totally fine. I understand the eagerness to start Trey Lance, and I will have no problem with starting Trey Lance. And I think this is one of the reasons why, because he's not going to force the ball. He's going to check it down. You're going to consistently move the ball. So for me, that's a huge deal. But I think it's going to do it for this little underrated trait segment for Trey Lance.